All right, so we're diving into Andhra Pradesh politics today. And let me tell you, it's a wild ride.
It's definitely never boring.
No, not at all. Our listeners are particularly interested in Chandrababu Naidu, specifically his, well, let's just say his recent pivot in strategy.
Right, his
his
embrace of, we could say, a more religiously charged political voice, maybe?
Exactly, and we've got a ton of articles and analyses here, and honestly, even I was pretty surprised by this whole saffron shift, as some are calling it.
Yeah, it's definitely a fascinating development, to say the least.
It really is, and to help us unpack all of this, we've got our expert here. Now, Naidu is usually known for his focus on tech, economic reforms, that kind of thing. Not exactly what comes to mind with this new approach. So, what's the deal? What's going on here?
It's a fascinating pivot, no doubt about it. To really understand how significant this shift is, we need to remember who Naidu's core base has always been. Urban, tech-savvy, economically driven voters. They've been his foundation, you know.
Right, his brand, if you will.
Precisely. And that's why this shift toward Hindu nationalism, and we should definitely unpack that term a bit later, is so interesting. It suggests a change in strategy, maybe even a hint of desperation.
Desperation. Whoa, okay, tell me more about that. Didn't he just win the 2024 election?
He did, but it wasn't a landslide victory by any means. He needed the support of Jana Sena, which has a much stronger Hindu nationalist platform. And of course, you've got the BJP looming large nationally.
The BJP. Always a factor.
Always. And that leads us right into Naidu's main rival, YS Jagan Mohan Reddy, who leads the YSRCP party. That's where things get really interesting.
Okay, so give me the rundown. What's the dynamic there?
Well, Naidu's using religious rhetoric, like the whole Tirupati Laddu controversy, to directly target Reddy in his base. It's a risky move for sure.
Hold on, the Tirupati Laddu controversy. I think I missed that one. What happened there?
So, the Tirupati Laddu, it's not just any sweet. It's sacred prasadam for devotees of Lord Venkateswara at the Tirupati temple. There were allegations of irregularities in how they were distributed during Reddy's last time in office, and Naidu's using that to paint Reddy as, well, disrespectful to Hindu traditions.
Clever tactic, but pretty risky too, right? Alienating voters over religious practice, that's playing with fire.
It definitely is. And there's another layer to this whole thing. Naidu's not a young guy anymore. This whole thing, it could be about cementing his legacy, maybe even clearing the path for his son, Nara Lokesh, to take over the party eventually.
The age-old game of political succession. So he's thinking long-term, but is it sustainable?
That's the million-dollar question, especially with another player entering the scene, one who could really shake things up, Pawan Kalyan.
Okay, Pawan Kalyan. So he's been popping up more and more in the news lately.
He has.
Who is this guy, and why is he such a big deal in all of this?
Well, imagine a guy who can give, I don't know, John Wick a run for his money on the big screen and then turn around and give this rousing political speech.
Okay.
That's Pawan Kalyan, basically.
Wow.
Hugely charismatic, popular, and a major figure in this whole Hindu nationalist movement.
So he's like an actual movie star turned politician?
That's right. He's also the head of Jana Sena, the party currently backing Naidu, remember?
Right.
But here's the really interesting part. Kalyan's political journey actually began on the left, embracing socialist ideals, complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Whoa, that's quite the turnaround. So he goes from fighting for the working class to aligning with, well, a very different ideology.
It is quite a shift.
Yeah. What's the story there?
Honestly, it has people scratching their heads. Some say it's a strategic move to ride this wave of Hindu nationalism, while others believe it's a genuine evolution of his beliefs. Whatever the reason, it's definitely working for him. He's got the people's attention, especially the younger generation.
Okay, so you've got Naidu making this shift, this saffron shift, and then you've got Kalyan, who's already there, potentially pulling voters in the same direction.
You got it. By playing this Hindu card, Naidu might actually be strengthening Kalyan's position without realizing it. Essentially, creating a rival for the same voter base. It's a dangerous game he's playing.
Yeah, it's almost like he brought a knife to a gunfight, right?
Right.
Speaking of dangerous games, you mentioned earlier that aligning with Hindu nationalism can backfire.
Yeah.
Like, it can really backfire.
It's a recurring theme in Indian politics. Kind of a cautionary tale, you know.
Give me an example.
Let's look at the Assam Gana Parishad, the AGP, up in Assam.
Okay.
Their identity was rooted in Assamese language, regional pride, that sort of thing.
So not really aligned with the whole Hindu nationalist ideology then?
Not exactly. But they decided to join forces with the BJP back in the 80s. And guess what happened? Their popularity plummeted. The BJP gained a foothold in the state, and the AGP, well, they're still struggling to regain their old standing.
Ouch. Talk about a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
It's like hitching your wagon to a runaway train.
It's a good way to put it.
You think you're in control, but
you end up wherever the train takes you.
Exactly.
And it's not just the AGP. Remember the Janata United, the JDU? They were a major player in that national NDA coalition.
Right.
But those kinds of alliances, they often end up benefiting the bigger fish. The smaller party is left with a diminished sense of self, less power.
So you're saying that joining hands with a larger, more ideologically driven party, it can actually water down your own identity.
Yeah.
You try to blend in, you lose what makes you unique, and then your own voters might not even recognize you anymore.
Exactly. And that's what Naidu needs to be careful of.
Yeah.
It's a pattern we've seen play out time and time again in Indian politics.
So, are there any instances where a regional party has managed to hold their own while also, let's say, playing footsie with Hindu nationalism?
It's rare.
Yeah.
But it's not unheard of.
Okay.
Take the Rashtriya Janata Dal, the RJD.
Okay.
They've consistently opposed the BJP's ideology, and even though they've been out of power in Bihar recently, they're still a force to be reckoned with.
Interesting.
It suggests that sometimes sticking to your guns, even if it means a tougher road, can be the more sustainable strategy in the long run.
Integrity over fleeting alliances.
Right.
Sounds like a lesson some politicians could stand to learn.
You're telling me. And there are plenty of examples where compromising your core principles for short-term gains, well, it doesn't always end well.
Oh, I bet. Tell me more.
All right, let's go to Haryana. Remember the Janayak Janata Party, the JJP?
Yeah, vaguely.
They campaigned against the BJP, and what did they do right after the election? Formed a post-poll alliance. The result?
Don't tell me it blew up in their faces.
Pretty much. Their support base felt betrayed, the alliance crumbled, and the JJP lost a lot of ground.
Oof. That's gotta sting.
It does.
It seems like voters can smell hypocrisy from a mile away.
They can.
They really can, and they don't forget it when they feel like their trust has been broken.
Nope.
And that brings us to maybe one of the most striking examples of this. The People's Democratic Party, the PDP, in Kashmir. Kashmir, that's a whole other ball game, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The PDP, with their focus on regional autonomy, decided to share power with the BJP, a party with completely different views on the region.
Right.
The result, the PDP's credibility took a massive hit, their influence faded, and the BJP, they just solidified their position.
It's like you said, a broken record. These alliances, they usually just end up benefiting the party with the stronger, more, centralized ideology.
It's a pattern, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We see it with the Janata Dal, secular in Karnataka, the Kerala Congress, even the Shiv Sena in Maharashtra.
Wow.
They've all been in this situation.
And more often than not, it doesn't really work out in their favor.
Right, and that's the risk Naidu is taking here.
Yeah.
He's betting that he'll be the exception to the rule, that he can ride this wave and come out on top.
Yeah.
But history, as we've seen, suggests otherwise.
So it's not just a one-off thing then. It sounds like there's a whole graveyard of regional parties who've tried to, play this game and gotten burned.
It's a pretty common story, and it's not just regional parties either.
Really?
Nope. We've seen national parties like the Samajwadi Party and the Bahujan Samaj Party struggle with this too. That pull to tap into this huge, ideologically driven voter base, it's tempting.
Right.
But it comes with a cost.
And that cost often seems to be, their own identity, right? Their core values,
Yeah, right.
The things that made them stand out in the first place.
It's like trying to blend in. When you're a chameleon, you can change your colors all you want, but you might just lose yourself in the process. You know what I mean?
I get it. And the voters, they see through it, don't they? It's like, wait, this isn't the same party I voted for.
Absolutely. And that's what's hard to come back from. That loss of trust, that disconnect between what a party does and what they've always stood for.
Which brings us right back to Naidu and this gamble he's making. He's looking at all these cautionary tales, all these other parties, and yet he's still going for it.
He's betting on himself, basically.
Yeah.
Betting on his political instincts.
Yeah.
That he can handle it, that this is what it takes to survive.
So it's not just about winning this election for him.
Right.
It's about what happens after. Can he actually deliver? Will he end up alienating his base or having to make concessions that just water down the party even more?
Exactly. And don't forget about Pawan Kalyan, the wild card here.
Right.
Naidu might have actually made him stronger by doing this, given him more legitimacy.
Yeah.
He's created a rival who's speaking directly to the same voter.
It's like a high-stakes game of chess Naidu playing right into his opponent's hands.
Yeah. Maybe. Only time will tell. But it does raise a bigger question about politics, especially in a place like India. Can you really hold on to your ideals and still play the game? Or do you have to compromise? And what happens then? Not just to the parties, but to the whole system.
Well, that's something for you to think about, dear listener, because the players might change, the strategies might shift, but one thing's for sure, the stakes are only getting higher.
That's for sure.
And on that note, we'll wrap things up for today. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll catch you next time.